Welcome to Live from the Table, the official podcast for the world-famous Comedy Cellar. I am the producer of the show. My name is Periel. For those of you tuning in for the first time, I am with the host of the show, the owner of the ever-expanding world-famous Comedy Cellar. I'm trying to do right by Dan. Noam Dworman. Dan is on a cruise ship, hopefully not being haunted by hantavirus. We can learn more about hantavirus by our very special guest, a return guest, Dr. Feroze Sidhwa, who is a surgeon and a humanitarian surgeon, having worked most extensively in Palestine, Ukraine, Haiti, Zimbabwe, and Burkina Faso.
That's a terrible introduction.
It is?
Because he's famous. First of all, he worked in Gaza, and he's famous for writing that op-ed in the New York Times where he exposed that there were babies with bullets in their heads. And
first of all, I haven't gotten to that part yet. And second of all, you're saying it's a terrible bio, but I literally got it from him.
No, but I know. So I thought that you left out the things that were most...
Well, now you have it, so
okay.
You don't need me
anyway,
anymore.
Welcome, Feroze.
Hey, guys.
Was there anything else in there you want to say?
I don't know. It's so interesting. His
It is quite a
your humanitarian work is really admirable.
Thanks.
Now, okay, so this we Feroze and I were fighting on Twitter,
Shocking.
which
just FYI, I did not mean when I said you interrupted me. I didn't mean it like you asshole. I can't believe you. All I meant was that like.
We're going to get to that. We're going to get to that. We're going to get to it.
All I should have said was a contentious discussion, and so my I would say something, you would question it. I would say, which is totally normal. Like, that's fine. I wasn't trying to say that you were like trying to stop me from saying, because eventually I said what I wanted to say anyway.
Yeah.
Is this recent?
It was the clip that the person was showing was just not getting to the whole thing because it didn't come in.
So, but before we get to serious matters, did you want to talk about something?
Yes, in fact, I did. So, part of my job is to reach out to people and book them. And sometimes it takes a long time to hunt them down, but I'll get like an onslaught of emails and I'll sit down once a week and I'll go through them. And, he'll send me a link and that's usually it. So I sent out one of these emails this morning and I got an email back from the person that says... I don't go on shows where the host repeatedly attacked me online and called me a hag. Would you?
I called her a despicable hag, actually.
Would you? Are you a hag? And I call Noam.
And I didn't warn her.
And I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, don't you think that like maybe you could give me a heads up?
I thought you followed me on Twitter. All right.
I do follow you on Twitter.
So let me just say in my own defense. This woman who I really want to have on the show, and if she is on the show, believe me, I'm going to be nice to her. I'm not going to call her names. I want to hear where she's coming from. She attacked me. She called me a moron, all sorts of names. And finally I said, I had enough of you, you despicable hag. But I think she might be all right. She attacked.
Well, let me finish.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me finish. Go ahead. Sorry.
Feroze is right. You were interrupting.
Yeah.
And I wrote back.
Yeah.
And I mean, bear with me for a minute.
Yeah.
I said, hi, Debbie. I actually was not aware of this. And then parenthetically, not nice. But before I emailed you, I did coincidentally stumble across a hag t-shirt from this great designer. And I considered getting one, but I like the perimenopause one better. I sent her the link. It's a famous designer who made a really cool t-shirt that said hag. I said, bear with me. In any event, I just called Noam and chided him for this. And he said he's sorry. And he promised no name calling and said he'd like to bury the hatchet and have you on the show. And she wrote back and said, let him apologize publicly on Twitter in a tweet like he did when he called me a hag. Until then, I consider him a complete wuss. He's demonstrated that in spades.
Okay.
And I wrote back, I just want you to see like how much loyalty I have.
After you said it was not nice, and go ahead. Yeah, no, you're right.
It's not nice.
It's not nice.
I don't like that she called you a moron either. I said, I respectfully disagree, but I will pass along.
Okay.
I haven't followed this feud, but I hope you guys make up.
This all stemmed from the fact that I had this guy, Josh Hammer, on. You know who Josh Hammer is?
I know the name. I don't think I know.
He's a hardline pro-Israel guy, as am I. But he makes nice with all sorts of conspiracy theorists and stuff like that, and like defends Dinesh D'Souza and Jack Posobiec. And I'm like, and I had him on the show. I was like, why do you do this? Why do you cover for these conspiracy theories? And we got into a big fight, and he started calling me names on Twitter, and then she chimed in. This is the way I remember it anyway. So that what's that problem? What'd she say?
No. Go ahead. Nothing.
Oh, so that's that. So yes, I will apologize to her
On Twitter.
Okay, and we'll have her on, and that it should be a good show. Just let it be known, I don't ever call somebody names unless they start. That's not my nature. I'm not a name caller. Anyway, especially let alone.
I just don't. I'm not on Twitter that much.
I almost never even call people names, even when they do call me names.
I just don't understand why grown adults are like sitting on the internet, like calling each
I'm
other
not a big fan of that either.
names. I mean, it's ridiculous, isn't it?
I have the urge to do it all the time, but I'm like, that's not going to solve. It's not going to help anything.
You're like, I'm a surgeon. I have to be above that.
I mean, there's that. There's the professional part of it, but also like after what was it? Why did these two guys start talking about me? I can't remember. But there's these like anonymous Twitter accounts. Like some of them are I don't know. I don't actually even know where they come from, but like one is a guy named Max, and he's got a pager after his name, and then one's called Strawman, but it's with an X instead of a W. Like, they're just kind of anonymous, and they're just the way that, like, when they come at you about something, they can't just say like, hey man, look, you said this, I don't think it's true, here's why. And I can't just like I just try to respond to them as I can, but like, they're just I can't even remember what like the actual words they use, but like they're just like aggressive, over the top, and it's hardly just them. Like it's like half of it, maybe 90% of Twitter, I don't even know. But yeah, they're because even like and there's plenty of leftists who do it as well. And I'm like politically, I'm definitely on the left, but like there's plenty of leftists that do it as well, and like even people that I really respect do that. And I'm like, guys, it makes you look so weird.
But I do have to say, I know who Strax. How do you pronounce it?
Yeah, I don't know.
I have to say, I haven't seen him quite do that. But maybe I just haven't.
It's not like it's. I can't say I haven't done a stats analysis of his Twitter thing, But yeah, no. There's just a lot of that in general, and it's very. I don't know. It just takes away from it. It just turns Twitter, or it turns any discussion into like, just
Yeah,
it just me. And again, and like
it becomes
they
a bar
started,
fight.
you started.
We have Marcus of Queensberry rules, we need. Anyway, okay. So I wanted to talk. We're going to get to our beef and the whole thing, but I wanted to talk with you before, and this is kind of not going to put you on the spot, about something that I've really spent a lot of time thinking about, and that is, and they're related issues. One is the issue of filters, or the lenses through we each of us see the world through. How do we adjust when we find that our own lens yielded inaccurate beliefs and conclusions? How do we judge others when their lens, when we see how they react to their own lenses and filters yielding inaccurate conclusions? And when does the line between good faith and bad faith get crossed, such that somebody says XYZ and they've been saying it in good faith, and then they're presented with really powerful evidence that X, Y, and Z were wrong, and then they continue to say X, Y, and Z, and at that point, even if they had really believed it, can we still consider them to be in good faith? And I'll give you an example, then I'll show you some videos. This is very interesting stuff to me. So one example of a filter that was totally wrong, and she had it, everybody had it, was that Trump was an anti-Semite. We heard I believe the ADL, calling him out as an anti-Semite. I had countless arguments with liberal Jewish people. He's an anti-Semite. He's going to sell Israel out. I remember saying, no, I really don't. I don't see it that way. Then Trump would make some joke, about to business people at a banquet, which was, and you see, he's dealing in his Jewish tropes of, money and blah blah blah. I'm like, it's just a joke, and then at the same time, like, the observant Jews, the people who being Jewish was most important to them, smart people, they were like voting 98% for Trump. I'd be like, well, how come the people who care most about being Jewish think this guy is the best friend they've ever had? Like, what do you think? They're stupid? So, and then sure enough, here we are. And Trump is like the last friend Israel has. He's obviously the best friend Israel has ever had. He's obviously not an anti-Semite. He threw Tucker Carlson under the bus before he threw the Jews under the bus. So all those people who were sure that Trump was this guy, now they have to reckon with the fact, holy shit, I was completely wrong about Trump and the Jews, right? But they won't. But that's just one little example. So then, I guess I'm talking for a while before I bring you to the conversation. But so then you have somebody like Mearsheimer, John Mearsheimer. Now, John Mearsheimer, he became famous, saying how Israel was behind the Iraq War and how the neocons and the Bush administration were really serving Israel's interests. The whole thing.
Yeah.
And as much as I didn't like that, and I did some good faith research and pretty much convinced myself it wasn't true, I had to be open to the fact that it was true. And I tried from my own lens, right? So then I say, well, what's up with Mearsheimer? So then recently, play the Mearsheimer clip.
What your thoughts on what we know and what we don't know about what happened on October 7th?
Well, I think we have a pretty good sense of what the general picture looks like. I think we don't know the number of Israelis who were killed by the Israeli forces. And you want to remember, it was not just the Hannibal Doctrine. The fact is that the Israelis got caught completely by surprise, and they did not have a very good backup plan. So what they did was they rushed in massive firepower, and they used that firepower to attack Hamas and the other Palestinian forces that had moved into Israel proper. And they killed a significant number of people, not with the Hannibal Doctrine, but just with all that firepower that was brought to bear against Hamas and other Palestinians who were intermingled with all sorts of Israelis. Then there's the whole issue of the Hannibal Doctrine, because as we know, the Palestinians were bent on taking many of their captured Israelis back to Gaza.
Now, you see, he by the way, he pauses there for a second because he doesn't want to say hostages. He said captured Israel. Go ahead.
And the Hannibal Doctrine calls for killing those people before they get there. So some Israelis were killed.
Now, and the Hannibal Doctrine doesn't call for killing the civilians before they get there. And I had the former head of the Mossad, and I just left Ami alone about this. What it calls for is that when hostages are being taken, that they will sometimes still fire on the hostage takers. That's kind of like in this dilemma of what to do. It's not, they don't target their own civilians. When I said that to Ami alone, he says, well, I can't even imagine this. And he's a left-wing guy. Anyway,
killed
this is not even my point.
Of the Hannibal Doctrine. And then you want to remember, on top of all that, it's consistent with international law for Hamas to try to break out of the concentration camp and to engage Israeli military forces in combat, which means they're going to kill some of them. So the fact that they killed Israeli soldiers is not a case of murder. Now, there were clearly Israeli civilians who were murdered. I'd be willing to bet in the final analysis, however, that Hamas did not murder many of those Israeli civilians.
Okay, so hold on, don't stop us here. So that's one. This is not the worst thing. So like without any evidence that I can find, he thinks that not many Israelis were murdered on October 7th. So that's one thing. And then he continues with
So
something
what are
even
your
more
thoughts
outlandish.
on the role of Epstein and the Epstein files and Epstein's history potentially in the U.S.'s treatment of Israel?
When you look at Trump and his behavior towards Israel, and you look at his behavior before he became president, there's good reason to think that the Israelis have the goods on him, and that they've made it clear to him that if he gets tough on Israel, they'll reveal certain things. One also can hypothesize that given his very close relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, and the fact that Jeffrey Epstein recorded so much of his interactions with other people and those other people's interactions with young girls and with young women, that maybe there's something there.
All right, so that's enough of that. So here we have the guy saying that not many Israelis were killed on by Hamas on October 7th, and civilians, and B, that Trump is being blackmailed by Netanyahu with the Epstein files. And I say to myself, and this is the first time I'll let you in, and I'll have other things to show you. Okay, this is so outlandish and so removed from evidence or even any attempt on his part to display evidence. Is it fair to go back now and say, why the fuck did we ever listen to this guy about the Iraq War? I mean, if this is the way his mind operates, if a University of Chicago professor has such a flimsy standard before he publicly says to the world these kinds of very serious accusations, am I to believe he was very, very careful and had a very high standard of proof before he made accusations about Israel influence in the White House during the Iraq War? I say no. So what do you think? What do you think about that?
I mean, I think there's a lot to talk about there. Let's start with the principles, I guess. So I am not a big fan of like dissecting what people say on podcasts like this, just because it's easy to like when he said, I think his words were something like, "I'm willing to bet not many civilians were murdered," or something like that. I think if you were to ask him, are you saying that Israel killed like the large majority of the 800 civilians who were 840 or something civilians who were killed on October 7th? I would imagine, and I don't know John Mearsheimer, I've never met him. I'm guessing he would say, no, I'm not making a claim about the quantity or anything.
No,
like
he said it more than once.
He did, but I don't.
If I say not many Jews were killed in the camps,
right.
No, don't jump to conclusions about what he means about the camps.
I completely agree with you. What I would suggest is actually just email him and ask. I honestly, but regardless.
Okay, let's get to the second part. What about the Epstein thing?
The Epstein thing, I personally, and I might get in trouble for saying this, I don't think the Epstein files are anywhere near as important as people say in trying to figure out the specifics of the conduct of this person or that person today, you know? Like it's very odd to me that people are like, oh, what about everyone knows Donald Trump is a totally unfaithful to his wives, whoring, womanizing, Miss Teen USA owning guy. Like it's not like hidden or something. So I don't really, the details of that. I remember there was a lawsuit. I don't remember if it was thrown out or not. I can't remember who won, but there was a lawsuit where like the allegations came out that I think he and his family were on Time magazine, a cover of Time magazine, or some magazine they were on a cover of, and he had some woman like roll up the magazine and spank him with it. Like, you know, there's a lot out there about Donald Trump that nobody seems to care about at all. So like, I don't really
Okay, this does not make him. There's no evidence of. I mean, that he owned Miss Teen USA. Somebody's got to own it. It's not like I know he's.
There's no evidence that he owned Miss Teen USA.
No, I'm saying there's no evidence that he. I know he made a comment.
Actually, that's
there's no evidence of him.
Really good example right there. You just said there's no evidence that he owned Miss Teen USA. No. But you interrupted yourself in the middle of a sentence.
No, I didn't. I didn't say that.
You did. Play it back. Those were your exact words. What you were trying to say is there's no evidence that he did anything wrong with Miss Teen USA, but you actually interrupted yourself. Right in the middle. That's not
what I said. I said, I remember, I'll tell you what I said. We can go back. I said, Miss Teen USA, somebody's got to own it. And I said, there's no evidence of it. And it was referring to the stuff you're talking about the improprieties. I didn't mean there was no evidence that he owned Miss Teen USA.
Exactly. But this is why I'm saying, like, when people are
everybody understood what you understood what I meant too.
I did.
Yeah, everybody would.
But I think with
responding to you,
regardless, let me put it this way. Yeah. If what Mearsheimer was saying is that very few Israelis were murdered on October 7th, I think that's completely ridiculous. I am not sure that's what he was saying, and there's a very easy way to figure it out. Just email him and then read his email response.
He said it more than once. I didn't want to bore you with other recordings of it. But listen.
I don't keep track of everything John Mearsheimer has said, and I agree that I don't want to sit here and watch recordings.
Okay, we can get on to the next one. But
hold on. You asked me like a very, very long. There was like a 10-minute lead up to this.
Go ahead.
So the first question that you started off with was, at what point do we lose faith that somebody is actually arguing in good faith? And I think this is a question that people ask all the time, and I think it does matter at some level, because at some point, like for me, if I'm curious about like Laos or China politics, like anything that I really don't know anything about at all, I kind of have to assume that whoever I'm listening to or reading is acting in good faith in their argument, right? Because I'm not going to sit there and learn how to read Chinese and then go look up their footnotes. Like that's just beyond my capability. So at some point you have to be willing to trust people. For me, regarding Israel-Palestine, that's something I know a lot about. I invest a lot of time in it. And so for me, I don't really care if somebody is acting in good faith. I'm talking about in my specific case of talking about Israel-Palestine, and especially the U.S.'s relationship to the Israel-Palestine conflict. When I read the Israel Lobby, he and Walt wrote that in 2006 or 2007, I can't remember, right around there. When I read it, I thought it was, and just to be clear, John Mearsheimer has actually said nice things about me, so I'm not trying to like pick a fight with him by saying this, but I didn't think there was any, I thought the book was completely ridiculous. From start, I thought the article they wrote in the London Review of Books was ridiculous, and I thought the book they wrote was ridiculous. And the reason is not because I think they're lying. I don't actually think I don't suspect that at all. I don't know as much about Walt, but Mearsheimer specifically, he's very much in this realist idea of, or this realist school of international relations. He has this idea, like, I saw I saw a talk he gave recently at maybe like the Arab American Institute in DC or something like that. Yeah, I don't know. I can't remember exactly what it was called, but he got up there, and his line of reasoning with the Israel lobby and the Iran war specifically is always, and I'm summarizing again, not trying to start a fight with the guy. He's a much more learned person than I am. But his line of reasoning is always, it's very obvious that the United States had no interest in attacking Iran. Therefore, there must be something else going on. The Israel lobby is the obvious culprit. I wrote about the Israel lobby way back.
Iraq.
No, I'm saying like this attack on Iran now.
No, but this time he's saying the reason is because Trump being blackmailed by the Israelis.
Yeah, well, and he also talks about the Israel lobby and all sorts of other stuff.
Well, you would think, but actually what he's been saying is that the Israelis have the goods on Trump.
He said that is
because of the Epstein files.
Yeah.
And that would imply that the lobby is actually irrelevant.
And this is I think one of the major problems with the book in general. If you look at the book, excuse me. If you look at that book and they've written subsequent stuff about it since, if you look at the book and all the arguments in general, it's kind of hard to tell what the Israel lobby is. Like, is it the people who work at AIPAC's office somewhere? Is it, what is it? If you read the book and the examples they give, it's kind of just everybody. Like basically the entire American elite is the Israel lobby. And actually Noam Chomsky used to make when the book came out, Chomsky made a good point. He said, if anybody believed that this was true, they would have there's a very simple solution to this. Put on your suit and, I'm quoting him almost exactly, put on your suit and tie and go to the next board meeting of General Electric and Lockheed Martin and all these other corporations that run the United States and tell them, hey, there's this Jewish cabal that's screwing up your control over the world, your profits, etc. So just smash them in the face because you obviously have the capability of doing so. You own the entire country. Nobody believes this. It's completely silly. But where it gets, I think with Mearsheimer, and again, I don't know the fellow, I don't want to argue with him directly. I'm just trying to respond to what you're telling me or what you're bringing up. With Mearsheimer specifically, I think it's because he insists that there is no U.S. interest in attacking Iran or Iraq. Actually, if you want to stick with the Iraq example.
No, the book was Iraq. This interview is about Iran. That's fine.
But exactly. The book mostly focuses on Iraq, but now I'm sure they were. I don't know when this was, but I'm sure they were mostly talking about Iran. Ago. So and that is just silly. Like it's completely silly to claim that the U.S. has no interest in controlling the Middle East by force. That's what the U.S. has been doing in the Middle East since 1940.
Feroze, I actually find everything you're saying interesting, and I'm actually I'm interested to hear. Let me refine my point. You want to say? You want to finish?
I promise. 2 more sentences.
Go ahead.
It is very silly to claim that the U.S. has no interest in controlling the hydrocarbon reserves and the strategic space of the Middle East by force. It has had that interest. It has been articulated by the State Department in the mid-1940s. It was one of the major reasons the U.S. even fought World War II. So to claim that all of a sudden this interest just evaporated in sometime between our first and second invasions of Iraq is just silly.
Yeah.
Like nothing changed. Nothing changed in world affairs.
Yeah. But so I agree with everything you said. But I just want to put a finer point on the point I'm making, which is that it's not that I agree with him or disagree with him about what he's saying. It's that he's making 2 claims that very few Israelis were killed by Hamas and that Trump being blackmailed. Neither of which has any evidence whatsoever.
Yeah.
And, when Periel does stuff like that, which she is wont to do, and she does quite often, even on Clinton, like she'll say, all the rapes, and I'm like, Periel, are you sure you know that? What's your evidence? How many times have
I have no idea what you're talking about. I've never done that.
Because I understand so fundamentally that when you're talking about serious matters, you really have to be sure that you are saying things that are true and that you can cite a credible source for. When a University of Chicago professor, an influential guy, as influential as he on this whole thing, permits himself these kinds of liberties, the very things he would give his students an F for if they were to hand in a document as flimsy as what he's saying. My feeling is that, I'm not even sure with good faith or bad faith, that the proper thing for all people to do on all sides, including the people who find what he's saying music to their ears, is to say, this guy cannot be taken seriously any longer. He is a used car salesman, and whether he's right or he's wrong, he has no methodology that we can discern. He is going to lead me over a cliff if I start repeating the stuff that he said. So that's my feeling. So let me give you another. Go ahead. You want to answer that? Another example?
To my mind, what I'm trying to say is, whenever I hear anybody speak about something that I actually know something about, I do not. Like, everybody has a political viewpoint. There's no question about that. So like you're saying, what music to my ears. But for me, I've learned that every time I've said to myself, this guy's good. This guy's just totally solid. Like a day later, you just find some complete nonsense. And so but really, look, everyone in this, I'm sure I know I make mistakes in life.
We'll get to that.
And and everybody does. That's fine. But like you're saying, when people when someone is saying anything out loud or making any claim or writing it down, any claim, I don't really care what it is. I always want to, the first question I always ask is that true or not?
Right.
And how can I figure that out? Yeah. It's not that there's no evidence that Israel killed quite a few people on October 7th. There is some, and it's mostly
not quite a few. There's evidence of some. There's not evidence of quite a few, but
I don't know what the difference between quite a few and some is. I'm saying
I think it's hard evidence of like under 10. Hard evidence. It's the last 10? Time I checked. Yeah, of Israel killing. I'm not saying
I'm not sure that's correct.
I'm not saying Israel didn't kill more. I'm saying that when I did my best effort to find out how many, I wouldn't fault. I mean, friendly fault. Like, who knows why people got killed?
And that's exactly the point that I think is
But I really did. Yeah. So I don't care what the number is.
Exactly. That's exactly my point.
But I really did look into it, and it's very hard to find evidence of more than. I forget what the number is. It's a pretty low number that there's hard evidence of. And then there's, of course, you can infer maybe there's plus or minus 20% or something. So maybe it's 15. I don't know. But it's, when you're talking about over 1,000 people.
The point is none of it doesn't matter because whatever Israel did or didn't do during the October 7th attack, I honestly just don't think it matters that much.
Well, let me tell you.
It's not really like it's. I just don't think that's. I don't know why anybody cares about the answer to this question.
Let me just put one thing into here because people don't all know this, but it's a very, I think, strong analogy. When a criminal starts a
Mm-hmm.
firefight with the cops, and if the cops then kill innocent bystanders, the criminal is charged with that murder.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the fact that some innocent Israelis might have been killed in a back and forth with Hamas, by all standards of morality and law, is still on Hamas's.
That's
talent.
why I don't think it matters.
That's why it doesn't matter. But
I don't agree with if a criminal. I don't think that's the right analogy, to be perfectly honest. But I do agree that it just doesn't matter. The deaths on October 7th were a foreseeable consequence of what Hamas did on October 7th.
If you certainly do agree with the analogy.
No, take the win.
No. You have to agree with the analogy because I'm talking. If they're shooting at people at the music festival. Mm-hmm. You don't think?
I don't agree because cops are obviously the good guys in that analogy, and the robbers are obviously the bad guys, and there's no antecedent history there. That's why I'm saying.
Let's just stop there, and then we'll go on to think. Are you saying that you think that the people who were mowing down people at the music festival were not bad guys?
I'm saying I think they're both bad guys. I think the Israelis and the Palestinians have both done a lot.
It could have been a dad protecting his daughter, or it could be just an innocent any civilian who went and got their gun and tried to defend against the people being mowed down at the music festival.
I think everybody
you're a doctor. How can you say that somebody mowing down people at a music festival or not, no matter what they went through?
I just said they were both the bad guys.
No. But do you agree that the people shooting the people at the music festival are bad guys?
That is obviously criminal. Yes.
Okay.
That is obviously criminal.
Now someone witnessing that would try.
He's obligated to respond. Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying.
I'm
totally agreeing.
There was
with
a
you
shooting. There was a shooting somewhere. What country was it in? Was it Australia? And it was an Arab guy. Remember, stepped in and stopped.
Yeah, that was Australia, Bondi Beach.
It was the Bondi Beach shooting. Yeah.
So like, if a Palestinian had stepped in to stop Hamas from killing these people at the music festival, would he at least become a good guy? Like you're assuming that the people.
I think you're dissecting what I said way too much.
Okay, let's move on.
I want to be clear about it though. Let me say that differently. I think maybe I was unclear. I was not Yair Golan, right? I forget what his position had been previously, but he grabbed he went to a military base, said, reinstate me immediately, give me a weapon, drove to the music festival and tried to rescue people there. And at least by his own account, shot plenty of people there. No one's saying Yair Golan was not a good guy in that moment.
So we agree.
No.
But if he killed somebody in the crossfire,
no. That, and again, same that would just be an error. That's my analogy. That is an unfortunate tragedy that happens while this individual person is trying to do the right thing. That is a very different thing from saying that the Palestinians are robbers coming into Israel for absolutely no reason that has no history behind it, etc., to fight the...
I didn't say that.
You didn't, but that's what I'm saying. The analogy can imply that, and I'm just trying to clarify that I don't agree with that aspect of the analogy.
So let's move on.
That was the only point I was trying to make.
Okay, fair enough. So now I'm going to give you another example. Now, this is a harder example because this is Omer Bartov, and he and I were arguing about the genocide accusation. And he had written an article, I should have brought the article, where he had actually defended the killing of the German, how do I put it fair to him? He felt that we were not criminal or committed, we had not done anything wrong in the bombing of Germany, despite the fact that so many Germans were killed, innocent Germans, because he said that we had to destroy Germany to rebuild it. He wrote a whole article about it. I could send you the article. So I confronted him with his own words about it. Now, and he's going to give his reason. So go ahead, play this, Stephen. Your final quote, which is to me very analogous to what Israel is facing, and it's a tough quote.
That's you.
The suffering of the individual needs to be recorded, and it may tell us a great deal about the nature of an historical event. But we must remember the context. The sacrifice of the German soldier, compared to the Hamas soldier, was made in the cause of genocide and fascism. The struggle of so many Germans to maintain their Reich, to keep Hitler in power, to keep Hamas in power, because you've compared. It was because Hitler's soldiers fought to the bitter end, as Hamas is fighting to the bitter end. It was because they fought to the bitter end that their country had to be destroyed. Only then could reconstruction begin.
Right.
So there was no talk of proportionality.
So
no talk, nothing.
So let me take you on this point.
Imagine if an Israeli said this.
Exactly. So let me take you on this point. The Americans and the British bombed the hell out of Germany, right? They killed about 600,000 civilians in strategic bombing, intentionally. It was not collateral damage. It was intentional.
So some were and some weren't, right? Yeah, some percentage.
Most were because they just couldn't hit the targets. So they bombed cities. And that could be, and that might have been, under different circumstances, called a war crime. But when they came to occupy Germany, what did they do? When they came to occupy Germany, they rebuilt it with the Marshall Plan. We haven't got
to that chapter yet.
So if Israel were to say what, by the way, Churchill and Roosevelt always said, they said, we are fighting the Nazis, not the German people. The German people are not our enemy. Can you think of Netanyahu saying...
Netanyahu, yes, he has said that.
No.
If I find it, I'm going to cut it in.
No.
Okay, so it turns out he said it more than once. I cut one example of it here. This is Netanyahu saying it.
Israel is fighting Hamas terrorists, not the Palestinian population. Our goal is to rid Gaza of Hamas terrorists and free our hostages. Once this is achieved, Gaza can be demilitarized and de-radicalized, thereby creating a possibility for a better future for Israel and Palestinians alike.
All right, so this is something he'd said more than once. So now, this is my question. You have a guy like Bartov. He's staked everything on this distinction that he's drawn. Churchill and Roosevelt said this. Israel doesn't say these things. Then we know now, and he knows now, that actually Israel did say these things. But he's still going around the world and writing a book saying the very same things that he had said previously. There is no integration, no redirection, no acknowledgement. Oh, well, I staked my argument on this being true, and this is not true. So to me, at that point, although he might have not known, it might have been good faith, can I still consider the man to be operating in good faith if he just sweeps this under the rug after saying that this was the key distinction? You follow me?
I follow you, but you're completely wrong in what you're saying. No. I mean, I don't think this is a much more straightforward situation.
Okay.
So Bartov is a native Hebrew speaker You do speak Hebrew? I can't remember. No, that's no. And I'm not trying to. I don't either. So not. It's not. No, I'm not judging. I'm just saying. I'm just asking.
I don't care. I'm not sensitive.
No. I don't know. I'm just, but
she does. Be careful.
Do you speak Hebrew? Really nice. So the so you speak Hebrew? Okay, interesting. I after I talked to you the first time, I started to watch some of your programs. And do you call this a program? I don't know. But but I saw the one with Noam Finkelstein.
Yeah.
And he called you over at some point, and he told you that the Israelis describe what they're doing in Gaza as mowing the lawn. And you actually told him you'd never heard that phrase before. So
I didn't say she was informed. I said she speaks Hebrew.
Oh, okay, fair enough. But I mean, that's the thing is, if you read the Hebrew press, and I can only read it through Google Translate, you don't. Okay. So then forget it.
Is it on Instagram? Is it a meme? She knows it.
I don't. She seems like an intelligent person.
She is, but she's not interested.
Don't be so glib about it. No. I don't read.
That's fair. Then my bad. I just assumed. My bad. I just assumed because you were here. Fair enough. But anyway,
don't get me started on him now.
On Finkelstein. Yeah. So what? This is a very, very famous distinction that is not hidden by anybody. Not only Netanyahu, but plenty of Israeli politicians say one thing in English and they say another thing in Hebrew. This is very well documented. It's very well understood. Anybody who reads the English language edition of Haaretz can see this.
You have evidence that he's never said it in Hebrew?
Say that again.
Do you have evidence that Netanyahu doesn't say this in Hebrew?
He might say it in Hebrew. Guess what else he says in Hebrew? He says, we are fighting all the Palestinians. We are trying to destroy Gaza. Let me finish the point and then please.
Okay, you're going on record about all these things. And if it turns out that we can't find these things, then what will your reaction be?
If you, I would be very happy to create a Google Doc with you.
Yeah, good, that'd be great.
Where we put a long list of Netanyahu, Smotrich, Ben Gvir.
No, Smotrich, don't bring Smotrich and Ben Gvir into it. We're not talking about you. I agree with you. I will stipulate to Smotrich and Ben Gvir. Everybody knows Smotrich and Ben Gvir. I'm sure Netanyahu has his own, he made a deal with the devil knowingly, and this is to his, history will judge him for having done this.
Okay.
But don't think I'm saying anything positive about Smotrich and Ben Gvir. They popped champagne corks at suffering of others. Please. But Netanyahu isn't something else, yeah.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, you've heard his statements about. Oh, sorry, I keep interrupting you.
No. I just want to say that if that's true, I would like that he and I'm not disputing that that it very well could be true, and I'm not a fan
that he has said these.
Yeah, gotcha. That he says one thing in Hebrew. Then Bartov should say that.
Yeah, that's a fair. I completely agree. Yeah, and I don't understand.
Look, we heard all that evidence that was brought into the ICJ about all the genocidal statements that the Israelis have made. So
I don't know why you're putting it in quotes. It's pretty amazing.
Whatever.
To read through.
I'm going to put it in quotes because I believe many of them are absurd. You could listen to my interview with Bartov. I think I demonstrated that they were absurd. You bringing in source evidence of what Amalek, all sorts of things. It doesn't even matter. I believe it's in quote. But anyway, if Netanyahu was on record saying the things that you're saying he said, I don't understand how the lawyers scouring Israeli statements for genocidal statements wouldn't have led with those very statements.
No, fair enough.
You don't need some oblique statement about Amalek if you have the Israeli prime minister saying we want to destroy all the Palestinians.
The statements about Amalek. What do you mean oblique?
Because Amalek is a traditional Jewish reference. I'm saying if he said
it is,
it's on the friggin' Holocaust Museum. Just Amalek. It's what they call, and there's two. You can read it. The whole Atlantic got a whole article about it. There's more than one reference. Yes. Netanyahu quoted the article in the Atlantic quotes the actual passage from which Netanyahu was quoting, which is not the passage from which the genocide. Listen, we could do it. The point is that
if
Netanyahu said what you were saying, I believe we would have read about it already in Hebrew, English, Farsi, whatever. That's what I think.
I can't read Farsi either. But so when Netanyahu made his comments about Amalek, and this is like October 8th, 9th, 2023, what did B'Tselem say?
B'Tselem? I don't know.
B'Tselem.
Tell people who B'Tselem is first.
B'Tselem is the Israeli Information Center for Human Rights in the Occupied Territories. It's Israel's biggest human rights group. It's certainly a leftist group.
Yeah.
So what? When I haven't read the press release since then, but what they said immediately was that every single Jewish person in Israel who has gone through the Israeli education system understands what this means.
But this is not true. I'm telling you, you can take your measure of me or of her. I know 1,000 Israelis. This is simply not true. It's just not true. You can say it to your blue in the face. B'Tselem can say it. It's not true. And there's nothing more I could say than that. Nobody that I know took this reference to mean genocide of the Palestinians.
Okay.
And I mean, the other stuff. Like,
when I was in Israel in December, plenty of people told me that's exactly how.
Well, you have a certain circle that's very political.
Of course I do. So you.
No,
that's what I'm saying.
I don't. Meaning that you have a certain circle.
You know a perfect sampling of Israelis.
I know a much.
It's completely ridiculous.
No, the Israelis that I know are a random sampling of Israelis because I don't know them because of any political associations I have. I know them because one does my sign, one is a waitress, one is a musician, one is in my family, one is Periel, one's Periel's friend. Like these are not, and they have, and most of them actually, I have to say, hate Netanyahu. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not saying they love Netanyahu. Yeah, that wasn't my point.
And none of these people, and Israeli journalists, I mean, religious people, non-religious people, religious people, most of all, are the ones saying that's not what Amalek means. You know, your lens, this gets you, like, you have to be careful about your lens here.
Totally.
You know a bunch of Israelis who are seething about being Jewish, maybe, but definitely about Israel.
They're seething about being Jewish.
Well, they're seething in some way, and that's how you. For instance, you worked on Finkelstein's book, right? You were his editor or something.
I helped edit it, yeah, or helped edit some of them, yeah.
Yeah. So like that's your. I'm not begrudging you your circle. I'm just saying something that actually you.
Norman Finkelstein is not Israeli.
No, but
he's. I wasn't referring to Norman Finkelstein.
No, I don't. But I'm saying that these are, you know what I'm saying. So, but if you were to think like I'm the mirror image of you, like, well, my interaction with Israelis is based on my political exposure to them, you couldn't be further from the truth. I mean, I don't have any...
I lived in Israel for a year, right?
You did?
Yes, after college.
I think maybe told us that the last time, yeah.
Or sorry, last 10 months.
Now
not
I understand.
A full year. But yeah, I mean, no, I'm just saying, like, it's not like I don't have any... I don't claim to know Israeli culture or society, like, you know.
I'm gonna
mentioned, I don't even speak Hebrew, but like... Okay. I'm just saying, it's not, I think you're assuming that I only know certain people in Israel or certain this or certain that.
Listen, so leaving Amalek aside. So there's this whole issue of lens. Now, I question my lens. When you wrote that article in the New York Times about the poor babies with the scans of bullets in their head, 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10 people that I agree with dismissed it. It's bullshit, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't.
You didn't. No, you didn't. To your credit.
And I certainly wanted to interrogate you about it to find out what it was. And then, although I'll say, but I don't want to drag you. It might make a defense. Although there were certain aspects in the narrative, like contemporaneous stuff that I felt like, well, why didn't he say it then? Why didn't he say it then? Which we could, which we did argue about. In the end, I went clearly on record as saying, I believe these scans are real. I found it ridiculous to think that you had randomly just put that scan on your laptop on the off chance I asked you to see it. I didn't. And then, we had an hour afterwards,
mm-hmm.
and I told everybody, to their consternation, I said, no, I think it's what he's showing is real. And, as I said to you, it kind of like this other thing we're talking about, like it's not necessarily a moral admission. Like, in Chicago, whenever you have crossfire going on, a certain number of people, children get killed, they
mm-hmm.
get shot in the head. So it's like, I don't know what to make of it. It could be murderers. Does not shock me to think, as I've said before, Israelis are drawn from the human race like every other human.
Yeah.
And I'd be foolish to say that no Israeli murdered anybody. I imagine some might have, certainly some crossfire. I don't know. The second time my lens was really tested was when Israel, at the end, not when we discussed it, when there was a food shortage in Gaza.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw those people getting shot. Haaretz reported it first. And again, everybody dismissed it.
Mm-hmm.
That were people being shot, queuing up for food. I remember saying, no, I think that sounds like it's real to me. I don't want to. And sure enough, it was real.
Mm-hmm.
I had certain experiences in my own life that I understood kind of. I felt I understood how incompetent people can actually be, how difficult it is to deal with big crowds. I lamented what I did see as a kind of, growing dehumanization on both sides. Benny Morris wrote a really good column about this like 18 months ago, where he feared the worst because essentially kind of what we were talking about when you first sat down about how nurses and doctors become inured to suffering. Yeah. This is 10x with soldiers, and you just get used to killing. You just get used to it. And you get used to suffering, and you create whatever psychological devices you have to just deal with it all. So, I lost my actual train of thought here, but when I heard that people were being shot merely lining up to get food, I immediately felt that it was real. And sure enough, it was real. And in the past, other things that I dismissed, they turned out not to be real. Like the thing I had with Rashid Khalidi about the Baptist hospital, the 471 that were thing. And he had the nerve to sit here and say to us, again, good faith or bad faith, he says, I know that it's true because I have friends who work in the hospital. Remember that? This is what Rashid Khalidi told me. Yeah. And then it turned out not to be true. I'm like, okay.
Well, I don't know about that. But
no, we do know.
How do we know that?
You don't know that 471 people were not killed at that hospital?
It wasn't that. That's not the exact number. There
was thorough investigations. 100 is the highest investigation.
I think it's 100 something, but that's
the highest. But most people think it could be a dozen, and it wasn't even an Israeli rocket.
So that's where there's quite a bit of.
Okay, let's say it was an Israeli rocket. Point is that we were arguing specifically about that huge. And by the way, the hospital wasn't even bombed. It was the parking lot.
It was the parking lot.
Yeah.
And why did Khalidi say that?
And he said, I have friends who work at the hospital. It was bombed, and I know the casualty. I don't what casualty count. He attested to the 471, although, of course, it could be 465 or whatever.
Right. Yeah. You're saying in that order of magnitude.
In that range.
Yeah.
So again, what is with this guy? Like, he obviously did not have a friend who worked at the hospital, who told him the hospital was bombed and there's bodies everywhere. He didn't have that. Will he get away with it? Of course he's going to get away with it.
But I don't. I mean, again, I don't know. I didn't listen to that conversation. But I don't. Where did I read this? It was Action on Armed Violence. So there's a British group called Action on Armed Violence. I'm almost sure this is their fellow. I think his last name's Gabriel or something like that. But anyway, they have an analyst there, a PhD at I think he's at LSE at the London School of Economics. But they have an analyst there who has gone through the Ministry of Health data and all. He's done quite a bit of work for them. And what he's said, or one of the things that he says, is that the Ministry of Health in Gaza it's constantly impugned in the Western press, and it's always described as the Hamas Ministry of Health or this or that. Doesn't distinguish between combatants and civilians. Doesn't blah blah blah. And one of the things he points out is that it's when you actually look at their methodology for counting the dead, it's quite conservative and it's quite careful, and that this is a you know what he was talking about? He was talking about, remember in November, December, January from 2023 to 24, there was a time when the Ministry of Health reported numbers from the Gaza media office, as well as the actual Ministry of Health count from morgues in Gaza, and once because the whole northern hospital system was out, right? The Shifa was out, Indonesian was out, Kamal Adwan was out. So when the in I don't know, probably February, March time, the Ministry of Health got the system up and working again, and it started going through. It still had a distinction. It had the people that had been counted from the Ministry of Health system and the people that had been counted from the Gaza Media Office. So it started going through all of the people in the Gaza Media Office with the Ministry of Health methodology, and it started removing any of those people from the list of dead that it couldn't fully verify. And people jumped on it and said, see, this proves they were lying all along and blah, blah, blah. And this guy, Cockrell is his last name,
Matthew Cockrell.
Yeah,
I know him,
he pointed out that this is not evidence of Hamas lying or the media office lying or the Ministry of Health lying. This is actually evidence of an attempt at robust data collection. They were very clear that they were using both of these systems when the other system came back online in the north. My point is, one of the things he says in that article is that, I'm pretty sure it's him, but anyway, somebody said it, that these even online casualty counts have become an issue of political solidarity or political posturing. Like it's the higher number, it's the lower number. It's a very weird thing where these things that are just factual questions, and they're ugly factual, how many children are dead, how many people, that's very ugly, and it's very difficult to talk about dispassionately. Like I remember when we had our first conversation, at one point you wanted to ask how many children would you expect to be killed in a war zone like this, and and like you're squinting because it's an ugly question. It is. Nevertheless, it's a reasonable one, right? It's a question that makes sense to ask, and you had a hard time even saying it out loud, which is understandable. But you know what I mean? Like these are difficult facts to discuss, but they're also very Rashid Khalidi is Palestinian. I don't think it's that crazy that he insisted that the higher number must be right. You're dismissing Palestinian lives. I again, what does that say?
I understand that as an emotional person.
Exactly, but that's the thing. But it is an emotion. He's not an automaton. Like he's a historian. He has a particular perspective.
I don't know.
When I've read several of his books, I've never found that perspective to be hidden.
He has no footnotes in his books. His books are trash. But anyway, that's my opinion. Go ahead. I mean, if you go to the footnote, it doesn't tell you. Like you read a Benny Morris book, you go to the footnote, it shows you exactly the paragraph where he got. If you read a Norman Finkelstein book,
yeah, he's very precise.
The footnotes are very, very like he leaves a breadcrumb for every single thing, so you can actually trace his research
for sure.
That's because Feroze did.
No, it's not. It is not at all.
I defy you.
He's just that.
I defy you to research any claim of Rashid Khalidi that he makes in that book about Palestine.
The 100 Years War is not a footnoted book, nor is it meant to be. But his other work.
Yes, but it's a disgrace to write a book that's not footnoted when you're a professor at Columbia University. You should be drummed out of your position. I remember my father used to say he wouldn't buy a book unless it had footnotes because why are you going to read? Oh, just trust me on this. Khalidi has all sorts of accounts of the peace process in his book, and he said, "Okay," and he's a footnote, and he says,
"I don't know if that's really."
Oh, it's
accurate.
true.
No, I'm not saying it's not true that your father said that. I'm saying I don't know if that's a reasonable way of judging. Like professors often write
a memoir, but he's not.
But that's the thing. 100 Years War is largely. It's not a memoir, literally.
Not a memoir.
But it's largely an account of his family's.
No. Yes,
what
but
I'm
not.
No, yes, it is.
Well,
the 100 Years War in Palestine is largely a personal account of his family's involvement in the Israel.
Okay, I'm not referring to his claims about his family. I would not expect footnotes.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. It's obviously written in that sense for a more popular audience. It's meant to humanize it. It's not meant to be like cold historical analysis. And furthermore, again, I just want to be clear.
I don't respect that, but okay.
Fair enough. And I don't know that he
because people then read it and take it as fact, and it's just.
But again, this is actually a really good point, or this is an important thing to what you just said is I agree with you. I agree. What was that? I agree with the last thing. Yeah, I wish. Maybe later. The last thing that you just said, that people are going to read it and take it as fact. I completely agree with you, and that is one of the things that actually is very frustrating for me when it comes to people understanding what, especially our involvement, meaning Americans, our involvement in the Israel-Palestine conflict is. I don't, how do you say this? I don't like the fact that people feel like you need to have a PhD in this subject to discuss it. And I don't like the fact that everybody claims to have a PhD level understanding of this thing to talk. And I am sure I have read in like the mid hundreds of books on this topic, right? Mm-hmm. I've read a lot about it.
And written about it.
And I haven't written a book, but I've written a lot about it as well. I've edited high level work for University of California Press, for for OR Books in London, for the Institute for Palestine Studies. I have some experience with it, but at the same time, if somebody has information. Like there's lots of information I don't know.
Right.
So it's not like.
So it's the people that know the most that make comments like that.
Well, I think so, because you learn how little you know. Like remember I sent you that book by Zev Moaz after we had our last conversation, Defending the Holy Land. So I've been rereading it actually, and I'm just like, oh my God, I forgot this. Oh my God, I forgot that. Like there's just. It's not, it's not my professional work to learn about the Israel-Palestine. It's something I do as a, not a hobby in the fun sense, but as a hobby, as an aside. Right. So it's, when people when people say, no, Rashid Khalidi wrote it, so it has to be true, that's just not a serious understanding of the world. Like, Rashid Khalidi is a human being. He has his own biases. He has his own understation of the world. He has his own position.
I don't want to get bogged down on Rashid Khalidi, but I'm making very general. So then obviously, then we come down to our disagreement, and I'm going to say what I said all along. After spending 3 hours with you, I had a very good impression of you. You seem like a pretty straight guy. Even in this conversation, I believe that people listening to this who only read your article in the Times, that they're probably like, oh, this is not the fire-breathing guy, anti-Israel, that I expected.
If they read the article, they wouldn't have found any of that.
Well, okay, fair enough. But in general, people are going to say, oh, this guy's obviously a little less predictable than I imagine. And I mean, you could say otherwise, but I think maybe the political divide is so great that we would end up hating each other. But if not for that, we'd have very easy time hanging out, talking about and stuff like that.
About that, but I mean, we could hang out, yes.
As dudes.
Or we could have until you said that.
We could just talk about normal things, but okay, yeah.
No, you get. So I'll just a little levity. So, but then we got bogged down on this claim that, now, first of all, I have two questions. First of all, just as an aside, when you were working in the hospitals in Gaza, because I've seen there's articles now about how there were gunmen, there were nurses, there was Hamas presence. Reuters reported. Did you see any of that? By the way, you didn't see any of that. Did you hear of any of it? Why do you think you didn't hear of any of it?
I'm pretty sure there wasn't any. So
Reuters.
Tell me, what did Reuters report? Was it the attack on Nasser in was it?
You don't expect me to have the details, do you?
Well, no, but this
I'm kidding.
No, I know, but it's okay. But this is important.
So, for instance, the headline is MSF. What does MSF stand for?
Yeah, so that's Doctors Without Borders. So MSF issued a
Médecins
statement.
Sans Frontières. For somebody who you're saying is not informed, Médecins Sans Frontières.
Oh, right. Suspend some Gaza hospital work over presence of gunmen, suspected weapons transfer.
Correct.
So now they were the guys. MSF were the ones accusing Israel in the past of things. They're not like
they still are. Yeah.
It seems pretty credible.
So yeah. So MSF, along with other, this is like January of this year, right? January,
I think February.
Yeah.
February 14th.
MSF put up a statement on their website. It was actually buried in a weird way, but regardless of that, they put up a statement on their website that said, it's very vague. It's kind of deliberately vague if you read it, and it says there have been gunmen seen at the hospital. This is during the ceasefire. It's between October of last year and now. We have seen gunmen at the hospital. They have intimidated our staff, things like that. They don't accuse the people, or they don't accuse Hamas of sending the gunmen directly. They then say, and again, this is all from memory, so if somebody reads it and I've got some of the details wrong, I apologize. But they then said that we have complained to the Hamas authorities about this, but nothing has been done about it. Now, that can mean a few different things. A few weeks. Gosh, I can't even remember now. Either a few weeks before I got to Nasser, because I went back to Gaza after we spoke. I went in March and April, and then I was blocked from going in November. But I can't remember if it was a few weeks before, but I'm pretty sure it was a few weeks after I left. The hospital was attacked by gunmen, but they were not from Hamas. They were from the Abu Shabaab clan, which is an anti-Hamas militia. And then Hamas had it out with them.
If you knew about that, it'd be also, by the way, there's other, there's Twitter threads here that have
right, but
multiple examples.
Let me finish
and even that guy, Gabriel Epstein, who I think is respected as an Israeli guy who...
he's the guy at WINEP, yeah.
Yeah, he has Dia Nafaz Abdul Fallah, who worked as both a nurse and emergency room supervisor for the Indonesian hospital in North Gaza, was a commander in the PIJ's military ambulance unit in Northern Virginia, was killed. And he has, the documents here about him being.
He was a commander in the ambulance unit?
It's a lot of this is in Arabic. I didn't mean to get into the specifics here, but
this matters. The specifics
but
matter.
there are long threads making direct accusations against.
There are
7 or 8 specific people who are accused credibly of being involved in Hamas or anti.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so let's forget the.
So if that's true,
no,
it's interesting you didn't hear about it.
No. I'm not sure it is. I just want to be clear. Is it unthinkable that there is a nurse at any hospital in Gaza who also at night is a Hamas combatant?
No.
Of course it's not. That's not unthinkable at all.
But they're also in the hospital with guns and stuff, right?
No. And this is what I'm trying to emphasize. That is not actually the case at all.
Okay.
So it's not my opinion. The 152 total, including me.
MSF says they had seen armed men,
and this is what I'm trying to explain
in the hospital compound.
Right, and this is what I'm trying to explain to you. If you read the MSF statement, which it's still on their website, I'm pretty sure. I have it saved a few.
So you think that they're not telling the truth?
Well, so when they put that statement out, there are a few things happen. Number one, Nasser itself put out a statement saying that this is completely false. Now, you would say, well, see, this is the thing, Noam. You're rolling your eyes
because MSF it's an admission against interest. MSF is begrudgingly admitting such things. MSF is not on the Israeli side of this. It's very, very credible when Hamas says, yes, we murdered somebody. It's much more credible than when Israel said, yes, Hamas murdered somebody.
No,
when MSF says, we have evidence that there was gunmen in the hospital compound,
right? Why
in the world would you not assume that's true?
Well, I didn't assume it's true because, like I said, I don't assume anything is true. And so like I said, number one, Nasser put out a statement. Again, I totally agree with you. That doesn't mean no individual piece of evidence, no individual claim makes something true or not. I then reached out to the people that worked at MSF in the hospital, and they all told me this testimony came from none of us. We did not. I met them when I was at Nasser. I worked with them. They said none of us gave this statement. This statement came from the MSF headquarters. I forget if it was France or Belgium or somewhere else, but it came from MSF headquarters, and we were all very surprised to see this. But thirdly, this is what's important.
The people might
no.
Please,
Please, for God's sake, let me finish what I'm saying. That statement does not actually lay the proper context for what was going on at the time. The context is there is a ceasefire. So it would be normal for Hamas to reassert its police authority and to just show up and, it could aren't there armed men in American hospitals? Aren't there armed people in Israeli hospitals? Of course there are. They're called cops. It's normal. But there's a big question. There's a big difference between saying the hospital is being used as a military base, which is not possible during a ceasefire. Right? We can all agree on this. So this is what I'm saying. These distinctions are very, very important. It matters what those people were doing. It is normal for there to be armed men in hospitals. There's armed men in the hospital I work at. There's armed men in the hospital your father was at that you were telling me about before we started this. Feroze, there were armed men everywhere.
Yeah, but MSF understands that. So why would they?
That's a great question. That was actually all of our questions as well. But leaving that aside, the next thing that everybody said, and I know 2 people who were working in the emergency room at Nasser and had been there for about 5 months at that point. They both said this is also complete nonsense. We've never seen any armed presence here at all.
I don't know much about
this. What I'm trying to say is I don't know if there may or may not have been armed people at Nasser at some point. Yeah. It is of no relevance. This is what I'm trying to say. Why you brought it up. Why did you think it was relevant?
Because you were there in the medical system there. I was wondering if you'd heard about it or seen it.
Right, but why? Why do you care if it's true or not?
Because it was denied for a long time.
No. See, again, this is wrong. This is completely and totally wrong. Who denied that an armed person has ever gone into a hospital?
No, not an armed person in a hospital. That Hamas was using hospitals.
Exactly.
Yes.
That's what you're saying, and that's not what the MSF statement says. This is where if you don't understand the relevant international law.
Are you saying that the MSF statement is not commenting on anything that they think is wrong?
The MSF statement points out that there are armed people in or that there have been armed people in the hospital or on the hospital compound. I don't remember if they said in the hospital.
It says hospital must remain neutral civilian spaces, free from military presence or activity, to ensure the safe and impartial delivery of medical care, MSF said. They're not just saying...
Well, that's a statement of fact or principle, I suppose, and that's true.
But it's in response to what they claim they're identifying. It's not saying what you're saying. All right, I think let's move on because we're running out of time. So we had this, and this all comes down to lens. So like as I started by saying, I think you don't trigger in me any of the normal things that I have about somebody I think is full of shit, bad faith, whatever it is. And yet we had this disagreement. Now I think the Hamas is claiming that 474 people died of starvation in the 3 years of the war.
Hamas is claiming that at all.
That's what the website, the Ministry of Health website. 474. And there was all this talk about, hundreds of thousands starving to death. And I told you at the time, this can't be true. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't true. And so, I attribute that to a lens, like for instance, like Glenn Greenwald, who I actually respect in many ways. He will jump on every anti-Israel story. Like there's never an anti-Israel story. He'll say, I don't think that might be a little much for me. I don't know if I believe that one, right? He will believe 100% of every anti-Israel story. So that's a huge flaw of his. And then, to somebody like me who would like to, I would like Haaretz, I trust often. I would like to know the person that I can trust who's telling me this bad stuff that Israel is doing, but they're doing it because it's just true and not because they're Glenn Greenwald who was looking for it and it's music to his ears, right? So I have the video there because we were all on Twitter about it. This is a device that Steven invented. If you press period, it pauses the video. Uh-huh. If you don't press star, whatever you do, don't press star. Okay, it shows all the. It's like Israeli porn comes up. But how do you go back a 5 seconds or something?
On the clip we were just on.
What's that?
On the clip we were just on.
What is that?
On the clip we were just on.
No, from this keypad, how do you go back a few seconds?
Oh,
is it the arrow?
I thought it was.
Okay.
No, that blows us up.
As long as you don't press it. So we're going to play this thing that you and I discussed. And then I'm going to let you stop it or rewind it so you can annotate it, what you think about what we're saying.
Right.
And and you can share with us like why you thought this way, whatever it is. I think this is interesting. I think I am going to say that I think your lens at that time was flawed, and that doesn't make you a bad person at all.
No, I know that. Yeah.
But then the challenge is what I was saying about Bartov is like now that you see some pretty hard evidence. Can you integrate it into a closer to predictively reliable lens such that you can interpret things in the future without wildly missing?
Yeah, it's a fair question. So, but before you start this thing, but
you'll get
what you're saying, you and I have both seen, or we lived it. This is a clip where we start talking about the possibility of starvation in Gaza. And I tell you that according to the evidence that existed at the time, it was impossible to estimate that. I forget the exact numbers, but that tens of thousands of people had died of starvation in Gaza. Yeah. Later on, I don't know how long this clip goes for. If it's 15 minutes, I sure hope not. But later on, I finally got to the point that I'm not saying this is true or it's not true. I'm saying that the best evidence that exists.
I cut that part out. No,
I know it's in there because I found it. I remember we texted.
No, but I did cut some. I hope I didn't cut that out. I try because it is 15 minutes.
It's later, yeah. But the point is,
I'm very good about not trying to cut things out.
No, I know. I didn't think you were trying.
Yeah, but it's possible.
But and what I can't remember the exact words, but I said something along the lines of, it doesn't mean it's true or it's not true. It means we should care enough to investigate.
Yeah,
and I think that's a completely reasonable assertion.
Yes, of course.
But what you just said is that we now know it's not true. How do you know that?
Because Hamas itself is not even claiming
that
it's
is
true.
Completely ridiculous.
Okay, so
first of all, I just want to be clear. You believe that Hamas is somehow a reliable source of information when it comes to the number of people who've starved to death in Gaza. That's your claim?
No.
Hamas has some way of recording this.
It's
Hamas, who last time I was here, sorry, I keep interrupting you.
Play the video because I
No,
make
no.
the arguments. I don't need to answer you. I make the arguments on the video.
Last time I was here,
Yeah.
I promise I will play it.
Okay.
But last time I was here, the first thing we started talking about for 20 minutes was that Hamas hates its civilian population and doesn't even allow them into the tunnels that you think are bomb shelters, even though they're not. But that doesn't even allow them into the tunnels and doesn't help their civilian population survive.
I didn't say they hated them, but yes.
You didn't. You're correct. You did not say that. I don't understand what other conclusion there could be from that.
They make martyrs out of them for their purposes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So
Is that not true?
It's part of their. Well, let's not get sidetracked. Let's not get sidetracked. Go ahead.
So yeah. So that. But this is. No. I don't think that's true. Or let me say it differently. Could a Hamas person have decided to do that? Yes. There's no doubt about it. Is that a consistent policy? It seems very hard to believe that, unless you believe that the Palestinians vote for people who just want to kill them. That'd be very strange. That kind of thing is very hard to prove or disprove, obviously, right? Could it be true in individual circumstances? Sure.
Well, there's some reason they don't let them into tunnels to take cover when the bombs are coming. So
I think it requires the same level.
There is some reason, right? Like they could let them in.
There would be a utility to it. There's no question about that.
And there's some reason they've opted not to do that. And my, Occam's
I
razor
explained
is
what it was very clearly.
My Occam's razor is they think it's in their interest not to do that, not because they hate these people. I would never. These are their families.
Yeah.
Anyway, play the video. You can press star to
a much simpler. You brought up Occam's razor. A much simpler explanation is that the tunnels are for military purposes, and that's what they're using them for. That's why Israel doesn't shelter people on Israeli military bases.
That makes no sense.
It makes perfect sense, and I think anybody listening can figure that out. But what I'm trying to point out
there's 300 miles of tunnels, and though
are they all bomb-proof? Do you like what?
They're definitely more bomb-proof than being exposed on the street in these buildings that are being destroyed. Anyway,
I don't know if that's true.
Okay.
You said push the
and
period?
they can press period. Yeah, you can send them to the whatever.
Yeah, period is play and pause.
Let's take a totally different thing just for a second.
You aged a little.
I'm sorry. I know you said you're tired. My hairline. Let's take a totally different thing. We wrote, me and 98 other healthcare providers wrote an open letter to the Biden administration, telling them what we saw and asking to have a meeting. There's an appendix to that letter too, and the appendix is very detailed or data driven, I guess you would say. And in that appendix, I went through the integrated food security phase classification data for Gaza. That's the technical group that monitors food insecurity in the world. And if you look at their data, which admittedly everybody admits is not great because it's very hard to get data out of Gaza, but if you look at their data, the minimum number of Palestinians that you can estimate that have died from starvation or starvation-related causes since October 7th of last year is 62,000. Now, it's a huge number, and I sincerely hope it's not true. And if it doesn't turn out to be true, that would be wonderful.
How can it be true?
How can it? So,
this is your show. You could no. I'm letting you respond to it in real time.
Yeah. Well, what do you find objectionable about what?
Well, let it play. Let it play. Now, I explain myself.
True?
We'd be seeing social media videos of people that look like concentration camps.
You do. Okay, so there we go. So that's one thing. You said we would be seeing pictures. There are plenty of pictures. I showed them to you. I showed you some of them. You didn't believe them, but that's fine.
No, we saw
even back then.
What I said.
Now there are plenty more.
What I say in the thing is that if 62,000 people are dying of starvation, that means probably 3-4 times that number are on the verge of starvation. Mm-hmm. So you're talking about hundreds of thousands of people who look similar to the liberation at Auschwitz.
And that's what I tried to explain to you was not correct.
It's not correct for a certain number of people, but when you're talking about hundreds of thousands of people, it would be true. It might not be true for the 475 that died, who were infants or whatever it is, but when you're talking about 62,000 people dying, it has to be true. And I said, with the ubiquity of photos coming out of Gaza, we did see the poor child in the bed, mm-hmm. starving, in a hospital bed, mm-hmm. but we're not seeing people walking around the streets, rib cages out, scrounging for food, we've seen in every famine. I've seen famines.
I can show you a picture of 4 boys about 10 years old sifting through the garbage for food. Would you like to see it?
Yeah.
I mean, what are you talking about? I don't.
Well, we could continue to play, but I'm saying that before there were cell phones, before every single person carried a camera,
What percentage of Gazans had cell phones before October 7th? I actually do know the answer to this question.
I'm going to say 60.
It was 50%.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So 53%, something like that.
So you're talking about 1 million cell phones.
Before October 7th, when there was electricity, when there was internet access.
Okay, but we're seeing lots of cell phone videos and footage from Gaza on a daily basis. And as I said, before there were cell phones, when we saw famines in Biafra or Ethiopia, we would see
Holocaust, yeah.
We would somehow we managed to see many photos of hellscapes of starvation, and we weren't seeing that from Gaza over the course of a whole year. We never saw one. So I said, you're right. We saw a couple kids. Listen, the number is 475. So we have to rejigger everything all the arguments I'm making in light of the fact that it turned out to be only 475. So what I was saying was not ridiculous. There weren't 62,000. Nobody's claimed the 62,000. So okay, continue to play it. Continue to play it. So
I really, okay. I'm just going to say that the question of starvation and how people die of starvation, what starvation results in, how it plays out, is a studied thing that people get PhDs in. I'm a physician. I don't have the expertise to like competently discuss all of its facets. The fact that you are comfortable, and this is the point I was trying to make, we'll play it if you like, but the point I was trying to make, because of your response then, and just like your response now, is precisely that you are willingly substituting this intellectualized nonsense for the reality of the fact that you don't know. You don't know what has actually happened. We have no clue how many people have starved to death in Gaza. You're claiming that because you read in some news report that Hamas says something.
Not a news report. I went to the document. Was it OCH
went
or
to
whatever?
Hamas's document?
No, the document that the same place we get all the casualty counts, which you do cite. They cite the starvation number. If you want to pick and choose and say, I only want to, the 72,000 that comes from the Gaza Ministry of Health.
I literally, so, okay, it's before, what was it? It was when I was in.
Well, what number do you think it is?
No, I have no clue. And that's exactly what I say here.
Well, what is the current speculation?
Well, so if you look at Michael Spagot's study, the Gaza GMS, Gaza Mortality Survey. That's the one that was just published, I think, in the Lancet Global Health. In that study, what they found is that from October 7th to January 5th, maybe? Early January of 2025, last year, they found, if I remember correctly, it's 8,500 excess deaths. So basically 8,500 deaths from war deprivation, starvation, displacement, whatever you want to call it. I have a very, very long discussion on Zeteo about the Gaza Mortality Survey. If anyone's interested, if you don't have access to Zeteo, because I know nobody does, just email me and I can send you a PDF of it. It's totally fine. But I have I literally just wrote a three-part article about this. It's thousands of words long, if anybody wants to actually get into it. Not about the starvation, but about the violent deaths in Gaza. But the Gaza Mortality Survey, which is the only scientific or attempted scientific estimate of how many people died of non-violent, not the term is silly, but like indirect deaths, we call them, not direct shooting or bombing or something like that, in Gaza is about 8,500. I'd be very happy to sit here and talk at length about what is wrong with that survey, but it would take a very, very long time.
Okay, but and I do want to play more of the video. It's a WHO reporting these numbers. The notion that we've been told so many details about the suffering, the aid, the people shot in the head, all the kids shot, all these deals, seen so many thousands of videos and photos out of Gaza, but somehow there's a mass starvation of hundreds of thousands of people, and the Hamas itself is not claiming it. Certainly, they know. Hamas itself is not
making... How are you saying that? Certainly they know. How would they know?
How would Hamas know?
How would Hamas know how many people have starved to death in the Gaza
they would
Strip?
know whether it's a few hundred or 60,000. As I said, you haven't gainsaid this, 60,000 who succumbed to it has to imply a multiple of people who are about to succumb to it. And that has to be hundreds of thousands of people on the verge of death. The fact that there could be hundreds of thousands of people walking around Gaza on the verge of death from starvation, and we have no photographic evidence, no testimonial evidence, no WHO claims, nobody is claiming it. Nobody's documented that you are clinging to this.
No, I'm
Feroze,
not clinging to it
dude.
at all. You are clinging to it.
Okay, could we continue to play the video?
Dude, no, hold on. Even in this video, do I or do I not say that we don't know how many people have starved to death in Gaza?
Well, yes, nobody knows the exact number. Well,
Exactly.
Let's see what you say. Let's see what you say. See what you say. And by 62,000.
So this is what I'm saying.
We see almost none. And when we do,
that's not true, Norman. You
and
don't
when
see
we,
almost.
and maybe you can explain this, because from time to time when I do see somebody emaciated like that, they're surrounded by people who are sometimes pudgy.
Yeah. So
I'm like, what is going on? How can one person be starving to death?
The fact that you can actually ask that question, I'm not.
You explain the answer very well here. Around friends and family that are overweight.
So Alex de Waal is like the preeminent historian of famine in the modern period. His book, I forget the name of the book. If you read it, he goes into details about how famine almost never affects an entire. Famine is not usually like what was happening in a Nazi concentration camp, but that's what we think of in our heads, right? I'm using the term famine. Let me just, I'm not using that in the IPC's technical definition of it. I'm just using it to mean a time when people don't have enough food and some of them are dying because of that. Famine usually happens in circumstances of scarcity, but it always affects people who have fewer mechanisms to cope with it. So like if you look at the IPC's phase classification, it goes 1 through 5. The first level is no food insecurity. The second is there's food insecurity, but by doing things that the family doesn't, they classify it at the household level. So by doing things that household doesn't normally do, for example, selling clothes or sometimes it's sex work, things like that, anything to get money, then they're able to get enough food. The third phase is where those coping mechanisms, for lack of a better term, break down. And now they're using those coping mechanisms, but they still don't have enough food, and they're starting to eat into their savings. The fourth classification is where even the savings and everything are exhausted, and the fifth is an extreme version, the catastrophe phase. I mean, if there's some IPC,
all good information
that
you're giving.
But that's how this is classified. It's not uncommon. It's very, very uncommon for an entire population all to be starving to death. But again, that's the picture we have in our head because we think of like the Americans going.
That's not the point I was making, but I want to let you finish.
Well, but you said there are chubby people next to dying people, and that's normal.
Yeah, I understand that there might be different levels of who's starving, who's not. But I'm saying that we see these isolated videos of a child in a bed. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, and no adult is going to let a child get to that level of starvation while they're eating comfort and maintaining their weight. So it's, listen, you actually really seem like a good struggling guy. with it. Somebody I'd want to know, somebody I'd want to spend time talking to enrich my own knowledge of things. You have a lot of life experience that is vital to the understanding of this conflict that I don't have. But there's certain disconnects in certain things you say that I have trouble accepting. And the notion that there could be, forget about 62,000, 30,000.
But this is what I'm starting to say.
More people starving in Gaza. Well, everybody has a cell phone. And we don't know about it. And Hamas is not announcing it. And the Gaza Ministry of Health is not adding it to their numbers. This is a credulousness.
Well, who am I being credulous towards? The integrated food security phase classification?
To whoever it is that's saying terrible things. That is similar to...
The IPC, which is funded by the United States, the EU, Canada, and Australia.
Whatever. No, when you said they didn't report it, they said... If this is true, it would be this. Then you said
no. I said based on their data, that's the. But
that's what I said. And you're saying, it could actually be that we have 30,000 people have died of starvation.
I don't want what I was saying to be misinterpreted. What I said is that with the available data, that's the lowest number that can be estimated. I don't
lowest
know
number.
but at the
but
same
it's obviously not true.
I wouldn't say it's obviously not true. I don't know if
I
it's
will
true.
bet you $1,000. I'll bet you $10,000 that when this is all over, we're not going to find out that on top of all the poor people who have died, 60,000 people starved to death.
Okay, fair enough. Like I said, I don't know.
We would see the videos. There are people in Gaza. I mean, you would have seen it. You were there.
I did.
You saw people. You saw whole groups of people like Auschwitz victims.
So let me. So you, I think you said you saw the one picture of the child.
Yeah, I saw the one picture.
Right. So that kid. Do you think we admitted him to the hospital? But this is what I'm saying. Yeah. The IPC's numbers say that 495,000 people, about a quarter of the population, are in the catastrophic phase of food insecurity. In that phase, 2 of every 10,000 people per day die of starvation and starvation-related causes. And if you calculate that out, that's the number we came up with. There's a table in the thing. Look, the point, Norm, that I was trying to make with all this is not that that's the true number or it's not the true number. Exactly what I was trying to say is we don't know. And what's going on in Gaza right now is so extreme that we don't know if we're starving tens of thousands of people.
I think
that's the point.
But we weren't.
Again, I don't know. I really find it frightening that you're willing to say that. So when did we find out how many people died of starvation in the Holocaust? How long did it take?
Well, I don't know, but as soon as we got there, we saw something horrible
had
happened in terms of starvation.
That's true. So when we got there, when we went into Bergen-Belsen or Auschwitz or wherever it was, what we found were the people. Like you think of the horrifically skeletal. There's a famous one of a man folding clothes. It's awful things. What we found, the very, very small number of people who were able to survive, were the people who were just genetically lucky enough to maintain their immune system during a period of extreme starvation and also extreme slave labor and stuff like that.
Can I ask you a technical question?
Yes.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Finish.
No.
Technical question. So, how is it that the Gaza Ministry of Health has a number of 72,000, but they are not aware, not just of another 60,000 people who are dead, but
you are the only one claiming 60,000 people have
or 30. I said it's not true.
You are the only person claiming to know any number of people who've starved.
I got the number from your letter. You said the minimum number we can calculate. The minimum number we can calculate based on the 2 per 10,000, whatever the math was, 60,000.
That's correct.
And I said, okay. So I'm saying. So my technical question is, why isn't the 72,000 that the Gaza Ministry of Health has identified riddled with the starvation deaths? Why is there another discrete set of 60, 30,000 people, whatever it is that you think is possible? They're just dead bodies, I don't mean like I'm saying they're not. They're a dead body like any other dead body, whether they were hit by a bomb or shot or starved to death. Why is that group of people somehow not easily countable? Why are their families not reporting into the Ministry of Health? Many of the figures I know are because the families self-report who died. What is keeping this number, whatever you think is possible, the lowest number you think is possible, 30,000, 50, 40,000, 50, what is keeping this a secret where all the other deaths are being counted?
So there's a lot wrong there.
Okay.
First of all the other deaths are not being counted. Again, if somebody wants to read the details about that, just look at my Zateo pieces. I know people, Zateo is some left-wing thing. It certainly is. But if you read
But you said the Gaza Ministry of Health is very thorough.
They are very thorough. So
Well, they're not very thorough if they can be off by a factor of 2 or 3.
Well, no, again, okay. So you asked a technical question. Fair enough.
Yeah.
How do people get counted as dead in the Gaza Strip?
Yeah.
When people are brought to, so the Ministry of Health reports numbers from 2 sources. One is people who are pronounced dead in hospitals in Gaza or are brought to the hospital. The morgues are always attached to the hospitals in Gaza, or they're brought. So they either died in the hospital, like in the ER after I did surgery on them or whatever, or they were brought to the front of the hospital and someone just said that person's dead. Just go to the morgue, right? Now that number in no conflict in world history has ever been inclusive of every single person who's died of military violence.
Of course.
That's just perfectly obvious. So the question is, to what degree are people missing? Nobody knows the answer to that question. It's a very difficult question to answer. According to the Gaza Mortality Survey, and also according to it's called a capture-recapture analysis. It was done by Zaina Jamaluddin at the London School, or I don't know, she's in Britain somewhere. I forget which institution she works at. But that was published in The Lancet in February of last year, maybe. And the Gaza Mortality Survey was just been open source for a while, but it's published now in The Lancet Global Health, so it's actually gone through peer review. Both of them find that and then there's actually another one done by a German demographic institute, but that's really just a complex modeling study, and I don't think people should put too much into it. According to the actual scientific data that's been collected and analyzed by professionals, far more experience with public health than I have, the Ministry of Health is undercounting deaths by something like 30 to 40%, violent deaths, only violent deaths, because that's what they looked at, by 30 to 40%. So here's a question. If somebody has been shot or blown up or, whatever acute violent thing happened to them, and 30 to 40% of those people never make it to a hospital, why would you think that people who are slowly starving to death would be brought to a hospital in perfect numbers such that they would be reported as dead by the Ministry of Health? You can ask the exact the same question applies to literally any other famine. Why isn't it hospital records that we learned the extent of famine deaths in Ethiopia or Biafra or Mozambique? Or Namibia?
I don't think you're understanding my question. Then I'm saying that let's say whatever of that 70,000 that have been reported. Let's say 30%, well, I don't know, actually not the claim. Let's say it's like hundreds died of starvation according to that number. But let's just, for the sake of argument, let's say it was 10% died of starvation. And
the 70,000 number that the Ministry of Health, or the 72,000, whatever it is only violent deaths. They are not reporting every death from the Gaza Strip.
Okay.
Publicly.
They report starvation deaths as well.
They do not have a regular mechanism for reporting starvation deaths. They never have, because people didn't used to starve.
That's my point. It's the same mechanism. People bring people starving to death to a hospital. Families report starving deaths to the Ministry of Health. Everything that somebody does when they find their loved one dead from a bullet wound, they do when they find, or suffering from a bullet wound, they do when they find their loved one starving to death.
So why
haven't
40% of the violent deaths been counted in that way then?
But I'm saying, this is what I'm getting to. Let's say you're right, that 40% of the deaths have not been counted. Then it would still break, that 40% would have to break down according to the ratio within that 70,000. You seem to be saying there could be another huge number comparable almost to the 70,000 violent deaths, which are just not being reported. They're not being filmed. They're not being testified to. There's no evidence. It's kind of like Mearsheimer with his Trump things. Like, it could be true, except there's no evidence of it. And the people who are, and there's quite a large motivation, considering the fact that it's very, very important for this interest group right now to win the case that Israel's committing genocide. Well, what better evidence could they adduce to the international court than evidence of 60,000 people who starved to death? Wouldn't that evoke the Holocaust that they're trying to it defies reason to think, but you're holding out hope, hope against hope that it's true. And I don't understand this lens, Feroze. I don't understand the lens.
So you're saying that Hamas would have an interest in revealing this information?
Everybody who's an opponent of Israel has an interest in revealing this.
Would Israel have an interest?
Every journalist. Yeah.
I don't know if every journalist is anti-Israel.
No, I mean every journalist who is an opponent. Yeah.
There aren't actually.
Haaretz. That's what
Come on, dude. Anyway, we're not going to get into that. So if Hamas would have an interest in proving that this is true, which I agree with you. You could argue it, but regardless of that, I agree with you that from a propaganda standpoint, they would have an interest in showing it's true.
Or for justice, just for justice, not for propaganda.
Fair enough. Wouldn't Israel likewise have an interest in proving it's not true?
Yes, but Israel's not proving it's not true.
Right. You're right. They're not, because they won't let any research teams into the Gaza Strip to actually do the study that would be required to show it's true or not true.
But Hamas can say so. Hamas can document it.
They can't.
They managed to count 72,000. They could count the other 60,000.
No, that's not what.
Okay.
Again, I don't think you understand. Number one, there are entire books written on how to count conflict deaths.
Okay.
It is not a simple matter. I know you think that
this is painful for me.
It should be, because it's what you're saying. You don't.
No, on a personal level, because it's so clearly to me, and I could be wrong. Like my lens, either my lens is completely.
It's not your lens. I think you.
No, it is.
Well, maybe it is. I don't know.
Through my lens, I'm like, this is. Forgive me, with due respect. This is. I'm just being from my lens. What I'm hearing is ridiculousness. Like this. I would stake all my money on the fact that this is what you're saying is not true.
I'm not the one saying it, Noam. You are saying that that this many people starved to death. I am saying that with the evidence we had when I made this video, more than a year ago, that was the only evidence that existed.
Is there any more evidence after a year?
Not really. No,
Okay.
Well, there's the Gaza mortality survey, but this is my point. How okay.
Why is there no more? Why is there no more evidence after a year?
Good, thank you. You actually asked the question that I couldn't think of how to articulate.
I take it back.
How? Why isn't there any more evidence?
Yeah.
Why isn't there?
Sorry. Yeah.
What would the evidence be? How does one? Since I'm assuming you didn't read things like how to count conflict deaths. How does one actually determine that the answer to that question?
The evidence would be.
Do you just ask the government?
I can answer. The evidence would be in a relatively small population like that. And by the way, you only need to do a sample to then make projections.
Correct.
The evidence would be that now that the war is stopped, that people would go around and canvass homes, and they would say, "Please come and report your deaths." They would be able to now figure out, okay, we have 72,000 names. Please let us know who else is missing. Like it should be like in 2 weeks. In a small area like that, you can walk from one end of Gaza to the other in a day. This is a very small place. You would just imagine that you could collect in, how long has it been since the ceasefire? It's going to be a year soon. That you could collect names of people who are still missing, and then inquire. Well, okay, we don't even have that. And if they're missing, how did they die? But what you're saying is that the people who are still missing, basically 100% of them must have starved to death.
When did I say that?
Okay, well, what do you believe? We're gonna end. We have to end. I thank you for coming, by the way. Really, you walked into a situation knowing that we'd had a fight, and but it's something. I think this is a good faith conversation.
Yeah,
what do you actually believe, and with what certainty is the answer to this question that we're debating? Well, what's your gut tell you?
So if you look at what the Ministry of Health does in Gaza, they have a mechanism for reporting people who have died of violence in Gaza that are not retrievable for whatever reason. They're buried under rubble. These bombs are incredibly powerful. They can just obliterate people. Things like that. I can't remember. It requires like two. It's a legal proceeding. It requires, I think, 2 non-first degree relatives. There's a to-do about it. I think they've worked through about 15,000 cases so far. That's included in the 72,000 deaths, the 72,000 violent deaths. I have not seen an attempt to do a new census in the Gaza Strip, which is basically what you're saying. The Spagat study that I mentioned, the Gaza mortality survey, is the first attempt to do exactly what you were describing, which is a household mortality survey. Mm-hmm. Household mortality surveys have traditionally been used in places like, say, Rwanda, where there was mass killings, huge amount of societal disruption. It's hardly surprising that you can't just Google give me everyone's name that died in Rwanda, right? That's not a thing. It took years to figure out how many people actually died on 9/11, down to the person. It took years and years to figure that out.
Yeah, but the margin of error was like 1%. It wasn't.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, sure, fair enough.
And that, the reason was,
in Israel,
but didn't take years to find out who was missing. It was like, of the people who were known to be missing, they weren't sure, did they leave with their girlfriends?
Yes, correct.
Did they die
Exactly.
9/11?
And there's definitely some of that,
same
for sure.
thing. Yeah.
No, but I'm saying these are in.
We knew 100% of who was missing.
These are in wealthy, completely open societies. There's no more attacks going on. No one's bulldozing your house. There's no difficulty finding food. Your kids still go to school the next day. It's the societal disruption that has happened in the Gaza Strip is enormous. I mean, you've seen the photos of Gaza. It's leveled.
My question was,
right now.
You remember my question?
No.
My question was, what do you think is the most likely truth in this matter. Nobody knows this stuff better than you. Very few people know better than you. And then you can put a percent. Like I think with 65% certainty, it was 30,000 people starved to death additionally. What does your gut tell you based on all your...
My gut doesn't tell me anything about it because you can't just walk into a place and figure out how many people starve there.
But you live and breathe this stuff. You know all these details.
Right. So let's not take me. I'm hardly the world's leading expert on famine. Alex DeWall, who I think I mentioned in the thing, is the world's leading expert on famine. He's written a very long, it's just a blog post, it's not peer reviewed, but he's written a very long analysis where he discounts our estimate as well. And he says that's probably not true. I wouldn't have used the IPC data in this way. Right. And so, he's on your side in that sense. He says that the number is almost certainly 10,000 or above. Now,
10,000 starvation
deaths. Now, in that case, why wouldn't we still see the videos or the pictures that you see?
I agree.
That you talk about.
I agree. So what's his explanation for that?
I don't want to speak for Alex DeWall. He's an extremely accomplished
You think he'd come on the show?
I would imagine he would, yeah. Right. I can put you in touch with him.
Do you want to come on with him? We do it like a Zoom thing?
I'm happy to. I don't know that I can add anything to his expertise. And he really is the world's leading. He's written several books on starvation. He wrote his PhD thesis on the Dutch hunger winter.
You'll contribute well to any conversation, in my opinion.
But but no, I'm very happy to. But but this is what I'm saying. Like the answer, all of this. Here's the answer to your question. I do not know the answer to your question. I am a reasonable enough person to know that I don't know the answer to that question, and I can't answer it with certainty. I can tell you what other experts have said. I can tell you what the Gaza mortality survey shows. I cannot reasonably give you a better answer.
So your answer to your question, if I put words in your mouth, is that you think Alex DeWall is probably it's good enough for him. It's good enough for you.
I don't see any reason to discount his estimate any more than anyone else's.
Okay.
But this is what you're trying to logic your way through this, which is fine. But I'm trying to point out to you, because you kept saying, why wouldn't Hamas show us? Why wouldn't Hamas show us? On the flip side, why doesn't Israel show us? Why doesn't Israel simply allow a research team, plenty of which have requested access and they've all been denied? Why, and one, including the one that I tried to put together, why wouldn't Israel just allow a research team to go through Gaza, all of it, not just the part inside the yellow line, and survey people? Like you just suggested.
I don't think they're letting anybody in there for any reason, and I'm sure it's not because because I'm sure it's not for reasons that you will respect. I'm not defending Israel.
I know you're not. I know, but what I'm trying to say is that you're the reason you're heavily discounting the possibility of thousands or tens of thousands of starvation deaths is because you're saying Hamas has an interest in showing it.
But they don't need the Israelis
That's
to
correct.
research it. They can research it themselves.
No.
No one's gonna. If Israel goes in there and researches it,
you're seriously telling me that if Hamas puts out a study tomorrow that says Mohammed, the fighter who blew up a tank a few weeks ago, has surveyed the population of Gaza, you're going to say, oh, look, they told us the truth. It's ridiculous. I wouldn't believe it.
No, you're not going to believe it if Israel...
I wouldn't believe it.
Feroze, you're not going to believe it, but the fact is it's something. Just like the 72,000 comes from Hamas, you believe that. You could believe this too. But if Israel goes in with a research team and comes out with a
I didn't say an Israeli research team. That's absurd. Nobody would believe.
Not
nobody.
Okay,
would believe
yes,
but
correct.
that would be
team.
highly suspect.
Yes.
There are plenty of Europeans that have asked. There are, like I said, I've tried to put together such a team as well.
No,
all of them
100%. You're right. I misunderstood or I misheard you. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Like Israel's not letting in independent
researchers. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So. But even if it's 10,000, that's still, only 20% of, or less than 20% of what we were, the number we were talking about. So
correct, and that would be, I cannot emphasize, and I know you agree, I cannot emphasize enough that would be, number one, 10,000 people starving to death is a horrific tragedy. But number two, we would both, the lower the number is, the better.
Of course,
that's what I think we both agree on that. It's not.
But also the lower the number is, the more I keep coming back to it. And believe me, this is not a bullshit introspection I'm talking about. I mean, for years and years and years now, I've been I know I got one thing really wrong. I thought Trump was going to concede the election in 2020. I thought he was, because I thought it was in his interest to do so. I said, I'll give him another week. He's going to concede. He never did. I said, I need to figure out, I need to update my software there. Why did I miss that? So, but in some way, the people who
I don't know that you have to have perfect political
not
predictions.
perfect. No,
Like, I don't think that proves you misunderstand the world just because some nutcase did something crazy. It's like
but nevertheless, you try to calibrate. So I'm just saying that the fact that people were ready to believe that 60,000, not just 60,000, 60,000 was the minimum. That's where it was expressed. That was the minimum number, meaning it could be 100,000.
That could be estimated with the available data, which I repeatedly caveated. But I'm like, you are the only one making this claim.
Yeah, but in some way, the people who said, I was ready to believe 60,000 was the minimum.
If somebody said they were ready to believe that, that means they either didn't listen to me or they have whatever mental block stops you from understanding.
Well, you wrote it in a letter and submitted it to the authorities, so you it's not like you just shooting the shit. I mean, you obviously it had to be better than, I would just say, as a matter of integrity. If you think something is likely not true, you're not going to put it in a letter. You only put it in a letter if you think it's more likely true than not.
That's
right?
not correct.
Come on, of course it's correct.
No, it's not.
You wouldn't write a letter to them.
What was the argument I made when we
I have the letter.
I wrote the letter. I know what it says. What was the argument I made when we were sitting here talking about it?
You said we don't have great data.
That's a statement of fact. What was the argument that I made?
I'm not sure what you're getting at.
The argument I made was that we don't know.
Right.
And we should care that we're starving children to death. That's what it is, Noam. Why is that hard for you to understand?
And some people, I don't like this. I'm not saying you're doing it on purpose. Some people express themselves in ways that they can point to something of both sides as a defense. So, yes, you said we don't know, but you also said, based on the data we have, 60,000 is the minimum we could imagine, and you submitted that in a letter to, who was the letter to?
The first one was to Biden, then to Trump.
Yeah, to the government. So, so then you have to say, well,
in a plea to get them to investigate this.
Right.
Okay,
yes.
Look.
So it's like you said we don't know, but obviously, if you thought we don't know, but I think this is extremely unlikely. Well, if you thought it was extremely unlikely, you didn't express that in the letter. The letter reads as if you actually believe 60,000 is the minimum. I think you did believe 60,000 was probably the minimum. You weren't 100% sure, but you thought it was likely. No, if we didn't think it was likely, it's not honest to put it in the letter. I think
that I guess that's a point of disagreement we're going to have.
Okay.
I do not. It's very. I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around this. You're saying, unless I found convincing evidence that 60,000 or any significant amount of evidence, a preponderance of evidence, sure, that X number of people, that there had been mass starvation in Gaza, unless I found that evidence, I shouldn't have brought it up.
I'm saying I wouldn't write. Oh, go ahead.
But that's assuming, or kind of is, I don't even know what the right word is. That implies that my goal was to blame someone for doing this. My goal was to try to point out to the United States government, both to Biden and to Trump, the savageness of what we were doing to the Palestinians in Gaza. That was my goal. My goal was not to prove that Israel is Nazi Germany or something. Like, that wasn't what I was trying to do. I was simply trying to point out that the United States is involved in some serious crimes in the Gaza Strip. This could potentially be one of them. And for some, I have to be honest, the matter of starvation, especially because Gaza is so young, the matter of starvation really hits people's hearts.
Of course.
And I was trying, it's a letter to a politician. It's a letter to a political office, I should say.
So you're saying you suspected it wasn't true, but you thought it was justifies.
No, there was
the
only this. Look, if it's 1942, and one guy sneaks a testimonial out of Auschwitz to the ICRC. Drops it off at your place. I know you weren't alive. I'm just pretending. Drops it off at your place, and you say, "Wow, this guy's talking about gas chambers and mass slaughter, mass graves, starvation."
Yeah, but what if 20% of the people in Auschwitz have cell phones and they can text them and tweet them? We wouldn't need that.
Auschwitz is obviously an extreme example.
No, okay.
You're missing the point. I'm trying to say that in that case, you could do one of two things. You could say, well, there's not really that much evidence. I'm not comparing the Auschwitz and Gaza. I'm trying to point out the logical
But it is a comparison. If 60,000 people are starving to death, it's like Auschwitz.
I'm trying to The death rate at Auschwitz was much higher than that. I'm trying to point out the logical inconsistency.
Yeah.
If you got this information, you're saying you would just throw it in the trash. Oh, it's just one thing. Or, I'll hang it on my wall. And when I get to 10 things on my wall, then I'll ask the government of Germany to look into this crazy thing that's going on.
No, I understand what you're saying. And there's something to what you're saying, in my opinion. What I'm trying to get at is, by all indications from the letter and just from the way you came across here and also down in the olive tree, I feel that you absolutely...
So what's the olive tree? Oh, is that the club?
Downstairs.
Oh, sorry.
The restaurant downstairs. Okay. That you absolutely believed that, you don't know what the number is, but that it was a large number. When you say 60,000 is the minimum, okay, well, what about Feroze? Could it be 40,000? Yeah, I guess it could be 40,000. 60,000 is more likely. If I said, what are the odds that it's 400 or 500? You'd be like, of course not. But we're saying now is like, this is just some evidence. You don't know if it's reliable, not reliable. It could be, somebody said something, so I put it in a letter. I never really believed it.
Well, it's not somebody said something. It's the integrated food security phase classification.
Yes. You're right. Actually,
that's it's also the famine early warning system that run literally by the United States government.
Okay.
The two most prominent authorities that investigate and report and raise the alarm, famine early warning system.
Yeah.
In the world, both run by the West, funded entirely by the West, they were the ones raising the alarm, and I was pointing it I'm curious. Do you think the IPC was irresponsible in publishing their reports on this matter?
I don't know enough to answer that. I don't.
If they why their report, the IPC reported this during was the famine early warning system
I'll tell you what
irresponsible in reporting this? They reported it to the president.
I'll answer you, possibly. And if I were in charge of the IPC and somebody presented this data, I would ask my staff or my organization the same questions that I've asked you. Well, how come we're not seeing this? How come we're not seeing that? And then I would get answers from them as to why. And then I would preemptively include in my report an answer to the questions that certainly I'm not unique probably in thinking this. Preemptively answer the questions that many people will have on a common sense basis, like, you're saying this, but it's not like Auschwitz where nobody knows what's going on in there. We're seeing pictures every day. If they didn't do that, then I would say that the person in charge of that organization absolutely deserves criticism. Why he didn't do that, I don't know. But if you are trying to be an objective purveyor of information, really objective, and there's an obvious or apparent obvious hole in what you're presenting, yes, it's irresponsible not to at least speculate. And by the way, studies do that. You read scientific studies. I read them a lot. Mm-hmm. Very often there'll be a section in there as, well, what about this and what about this, and we're not sure about this, and we haven't accounted. They will actually preemptively try to bring out the questions that a reasonable scientist will have based on what they're presenting. So they didn't do that at all.
Yeah, have you read the reports?
That's why I don't want to answer.
Yeah, well, but listen to what you just said. You just said they haven't done that at all.
Well, if they had, you would have come up with the answers for me.
So the long and short of it is that no scientist would ask how many pictures are there.
But why are there? Okay.
But but I do want to just point out, we already talked about it, but if you do want to know the answer to questions like that, Alex DeWall is the person you should talk to. All right.
I want please let's do that. And I don't want to make you sit through the rest of the video. You've been here too long already. You're all right by me, Feroze. Even though I do think that there's a lens issue here with one of us.
I also
with one of us.
Let me be clear.
Yeah.
I do not deny that I have a particular perspective on the Israel-Palestine conflict, and more importantly, the U.S.'s role in it. That's tell me if I'm wrong, because that's fine. I think
he will.
No, that's you're like, he won't hesitate. Don't worry. I think your lens is a pro-Israel one, and that's fine. I don't agree with it, but I don't think it means you're some monster or something like that. I think though that you assume that my lens is a pro-Palestinian one, My lens is one where I do not want my own government involved in crimes. That's
fair enough. Yeah,
I do not like, like last time somebody put, because I made the mistake of reading the Twitter comments last time. Somebody said, oh, this guy pretends he's not political. And then he's citing this literature and that literature. And he's obviously read a lot about the history. And it's like,
that was my burner account.
Yeah. Well, but the point is, like, when I said I wasn't, I don't think I said I'm not political. I think what I said is, I don't have any interest in the political outcome of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
But you edited Finkelstein's book?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the thing. Well, and to be fair, I did that when I was in my early 20s. And I do, and actually, now that you bring it up, I'm happy to discuss it if you want. My thinking has definitely changed very much in that regard over my lifetime. I'm 44 now. When I started learning about this, I was 18. It was the second Intifada broke out when I was a freshman in college, so it was just a big thing on campus. The lens, or the options for you to be were pro-Israel or pro-Palestine. And it seemed to me that being pro-Palestine was the more decent position. So I took that for a long time. I used to wear a little Palestinian flag on my lapel, blah, blah, blah.
A lot of my employees do, yeah.
They'll get there. But as I went on, and actually while I was editing Finkelstein's book, the one called Beyond Chutzpah, which mostly is about Alan Dershowitz and his ludicrous book, The Case for Israel, I started to realize, because I was living in Israel at the time.
Why were you living in Israel?
I worked with a Palestinian Jewish cooperative there that tried to solve intercommunal problems in Haifa. Yeah, I lived the Baha'i Temple. It's like it goes right out to Ben Gurion Street. I actually just went back there in December, but I went back to the apartment. I was like, oh my god. If you walk up Ben Gurion towards the Baha'i Temple, go right and walk. There's like a little bit of a hill and a curve to the left. I used to live right over there.
Does it have to be mutually exclusive to be pro-Israel and pro-Palestine?
No, I completely agree with that. I don't think it does. But this is my point: is that when it's presented to you, especially as I was 18. When it's presented to you in this way, you pick a side, you move on you go on. The more I read, and especially when I started to read the human rights reports, I always, my first is the street right there. I started to realize these are all American weapons. This is all American diplomat. Like, I just started to realize more the role of the United States, which is kind of obvious, but it's not that obvious. It's kind of hidden. So my thinking has actually evolved in that way a little bit. Now, I don't know if it matches up with Norm Finkelstein's understanding of things. I honestly have I never talked to him about it. So you have to ask him. I don't know. But when you take the position of, and you're actually Israeli.
My mom is.
Your mother, and then one of your parents was also, right? Both your parents. So yeah, so like if
my mom's actually Palestinian. She was born. It was Palestine.
My mother is.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
My mother's much more anti-Israel than you, by the way. She is.
Well, but that's the thing. Is like when you're if you are Israeli or you are Palestinian, then I understand sticking to that. It's kind of, I don't want to call it tribal. That's degrading, but it's a tribal perspective. Fine. But I'm neither of those things. I'm not in any way, I'm not Muslim, I'm not Christian, I'm not Jewish, I'm not Arab, I'm not Palestinian. I'm not, my parents are from a small ethnic and religious minority in Pakistan. And they came here and they my parents actually left Pakistan because it was hard for them to live as non-Muslims there, so they don't have any great love for what's going on, or for the work that I do. It doesn't particularly interest them. But I'm an American. It's really the only national identity or group identity that I have, other than being male, I suppose. My own ethnic group is like 10,000 people in the U.S., 10 or 20,000 people. It's very, very small.
What's it called?
The Parsis. I barely interact with them. There's none near where I live, for example, because just a small group of people. So that's my concern, and it's hardly only a concern with Israel-Palestine. Like, remember, I've worked in Ukraine. I've worked in other places. I'm going to go to Ethiopia in September.
And you risk your life.
Well, that's dramatic. But this is the point. It's like I think by taking by taking the lens of the question of what is the United States doing here, that's when I think it allows somebody to step back for a second and say, wait a minute, I don't have to be pro-Israel or pro-Palestine. For these terms don't even mean anything. if I accept that the U.S. is deeply involved, I can just ask, what is the U.S.'s involvement doing, right? And if that's when that becomes the question, it's much easier to take a.
What do you think the outcome?
And this is what gets back to the question of starvation.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah,
because we do have to go, but just we had to go 10 minutes ago.
It's all
but and I'm sensitive to your, feelings as an American. What do you think the outcome will be when America no longer provides aid to Israel, but the Chinese and the Iranians and everyone else continue to provide aid to Hezbollah and Hamas? What do you foresee as the...
You didn't read Moses' book that I sent you. So you should read that book.
Okay, I will.
He hasn't read my books either.
Which books do you have?
We can get to that at the end.
Oh.
The only bush surely you must have read it. The only bush I trust is my own.
That's one of them.
Is it really? I don't know that one.
You're a doctor. You can handle it.
It's a great book.
Feroze, we have to go. We have to go. I could talk to you for another hour. We have to go.
But just to answer the question.
Say whatever your last piece.
I completely agree. So I have called for me and the other doctors and Amnesty International, lots of us, have called for an arms embargo on Israel. That is not the same thing as, and excuse me, I actually said that incorrectly. Me and Amnesty and all the others have called for an arms embargo on the Middle East. That is but this is
that's not going to happen.
Well, it's not going to happen unless America.
Israel couldn't even get an arms embargo in Gaza when they had a fence on Egypt's side and a fence on the Israeli, and every single thing taken in and out was inspected. They had thousands of rockets. You can't get an arms embargo.
Rockets are all homemade.
But that's the point.
If you want to get into the, I will just say one thing:
arms embargoes.
Where do the explosives from those rockets come from?
I don't know the details, but I'm just saying, China,
you should know
China and Iran's going to.
You should know the answer to that question.
What's the answer?
It's all from unexploded Israeli ordnance.
Okay.
In other words, if Israel doesn't drop bombs on Gaza, there is no way to blow anything up.
You may or may not be right.
I am 100% right. This is a well-reported thing in multiple places.
Is it actually? This is the lens again. You actually believe that the Ayatollah in Iran was going to get on board an arms embargo against weapons to Hezbollah because Feroze, it's so outlandish.
Well, obviously not
of course, they're dedicated to the destruction of Israel. They have a countdown clock.
They have a countdown clock?
That's what I've heard over and over. They have a countdown clock in Tehran, the 30 years of destruction of Israel. Hezbollah is not even,
what happens when the clock hits zero?
Point is that this is their national cause.
No, it's not.
Hezbollah is not Palestinian. They're not Sunni. They just want to.
Neither is Iran. But
so you think Iran would get on board with an arms embargo?
If you had read Moses' book,
but what you would see
is that he says one of the main failures of Israeli understanding of I'm talking about the Israeli government and the academic sphere, the strategic studies people, the military. One of the main failures to understand the world that they live in was focusing exclusively on Arab rhetoric, which Iran's not an Arab country, but it would still apply, instead of Arab actions. And he points out that at no point did the Arab world ever invest enough in its military structure to even potentially threaten Israel. That is simply a fact of the matter. You can talk about the 1973 war. It's
150,000 rockets in the north threatened Israel.
So again, Zev Maoz goes through this. He wrote his book in 2006. You really should read it. Okay. He specifically discusses the withdrawal. I know just because I was reading it just a few weeks ago. He specifically discusses the withdrawal from Lebanon in 2000, and he says that and again, you said you don't read the Hebrew press, but maybe if you spoke to Israelis at the time. Every Israeli analyst was saying, this is a disaster. They're going to start shelling the north. They didn't do anything. They didn't do anything. And in fact, if you can think, you might want to think about this for a second. Hezbollah is the only national liberation group that I've ever heard of. If you can give me a counterexample, I'd love to know about it. That has ever liberated a country from occupation and then not taken the country over. They did not take over the government. They did not get rid of the confessional system that keeps the Sunni and the Christian minorities in power. They didn't do any of that. So for until 2006 or 7, I can't. When was the 2006 was the last war, or the war before the last? But anyway, 2006 was the first war between 2000 and 2006. Hezbollah repeatedly said, "You need to give us our captives back." It wasn't until they reached the very end of this request, over and over 6 years of asking for their captives back, that they captured 3 Israeli soldiers on the border and then started a war with Israel. This is my point. There is no one is calling for disarming Israel. You're misunderstanding the call. The call, and actually there was just an editorial about this in Haaretz 2 days ago. The call is for there to be some level of military parity between Israel and the other states in the region. That's usually how peace is achieved. And if that were to happen, and I'm telling you this, and I mean it honestly, I don't know if you'll believe me, but if that were to happen, and if the Arab world were to start to all of a sudden mobilize to destroy Israel, I would be the first person to sign up as a physician to go work with the IDF. I don't want Israel to be invaded. I don't want Israelis to be massacred. That's completely and utterly, that would be a crime against humanity. But right now, what's happening is the opposite.
Okay. Well, believe me, I'm not cutting you off because I don't like.
No, I know
we have to go. I also don't have much to contribute to this part of your conversation because I don't know much about that stuff. So I'm not going to
read Moses.
I'm sure I don't agree with you though.
But read it. I'm telling you, I sent it to you for a reason. Zev Maoz is a conservative Israeli nationalist. He is the Avner Yaniv was the founder.
You're leaving town tomorrow morning?
Tomorrow morning.
You know, because I'm having dinner tomorrow night with an Israeli journalist. And I would love to have invited you. I don't want to say on the thing, but I'll tell you when we disconnect. But maybe next time I can pull something like that off. All right, Feroze Sidhwa, thank you very much. You are, as Bill O'Reilly, you're a stand-up guy. But no. Remember you used to say that?
No, I didn't really watch.
I made every attempt not to pay attention to him. Yeah.
No, that was a good show.
I suppose.
Never
saw it.
I never saw it.
My dad loved it. I saw it when I was 16, 17.
The only thing I know about Bill O'Reilly is that viral video clip when he goes, "Fuck it, we'll do it live."
No, he's a blowhard in a way, but the show, as opposed to other Fox News is unwatchable now. The show you could imagine where I said, I think this. I think that the oil companies are jacking the price up. He was kind of a populist. Bring me the best expert that disagrees with me, because that's
like what you say to me.
Yeah, like that. No, and you would see this. So the debate on the O'Reilly show was compelling, as opposed to what it became later with like Laura Ingraham and where they just bring on people either they agree with or like foils who are idiots
or lunatics.
Yeah. Which I stopped watching. Anyway, all right.
You're supposed to say you're a mensch, not you're a stand-up guy. That's
he knows. You know what a mensch is.
Of course, he knows what a mensch is.
You are a mensch. You're a mensch. All right. We'll cut that part out.
No, it's fine.
All right, good night, everybody.
Thanks, man. Nice talking to you guys.
Thank you.